Barack Obama has been on the campaign trail for Vice President Kamala Harris, and it has been, as you can expect, brilliant stuff. And I want to walk through that for you. Trump, we understand, loses his mind. Nothing triggers him quite as much as Barack Obama. Some speculate that's why he got into politics, because he was upset that Obama mocked him. And so I can imagine when these clips come on the television, Trump is very, very upset. Let's start with this.
And yet, when Donald Trump repeatedly lies or cheats or shows utter disregard for our Constitution or just insults people, when he calls service members who died in battle losers, or fellow citizens vermin, or the enemy within, people make excuses for it. They say, well, he's not serious. He's not. Everything a president says is serious. Everything that somebody who's aspiring to office is listened to. And people make excuses for it.
By the way, please do remember to click that subscribe button as we're racing towards 1 million subscribers before the election. Finally, this point is being made. I think it should be repeated more often, which is, if you have to constantly say, oh no, Trump doesn't mean it. Oh no, that wasn't serious. Oh no, it was a joke. Oh no, he just says random things in it's abstractions, like Tim Scott said. Maybe that's not someone you want to be president. Someone who has so little control over themselves that they can't control their mouth. You want them to be in control of our country? But that's always the argument. Oh, trust me. When he says he wants to terminate the Constitution, a post that's still up on Truth Social, he means strengthen it, but don't change it and protect it. That's what he means by termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution, because it's an abstraction. It's opposite day. Well, you have to do that for your person. I don't. When Vice President Harris makes an argument, even if it's one that makes MAGA upset, I don't have to then run to MAGA and go, no, she meant something completely different. Let me explain. Then on Trump's pandemic response, Obama again emphasizes this guy was handed a plan for how to take this seriously, for how to handle it properly. We had been developing a pandemic response plan. We had a whole initiative, and Trump shut it down and didn't listen to it.
Listen, when I was president, I'll give you just one other example. And I want you to use this example when you're talking to folks who say it's not going to make any difference. I had been talking to scientists for a while, and so in my last year in office, we put together a playbook for how to deal with the eventuality of a pandemic. Because scientists had been saying with globalization and travel, etc., rising populations, that at some point there was going to be a pandemic. And so I said to my team, I said, we got to have a plan, just like you do for hurricanes or tornadoes or natural disasters. So we put together this whole playbook, and we practiced the playbook. We'd get all the agencies. This is how we're going to respond. This is how to make sure that the public health systems in all the states are working. Here's how we're going to think about the schools. And when Donald Trump came in, we gave over this playbook to them. And but the point is, he ignored it. And 3 years later, a pandemic hits. Now, I want to really be fair on this, but I want everybody to pay attention. No matter who was president at the time, this was going to be a problem. This was a generational pandemic. People were going to get sick. People were going to die. We didn't have a vaccine right away. Businesses were going to have to shut down for a while. Travel was going to be restricted. But if you look at a country like Canada, their per capita death rate was 40% lower than it was here in the United States.
And he goes through, for the sake of time, I'll stop that one there, the way that we were hit so much harder while Trump was president because he was mismanaging it. And this is why we fired him, right? This is why America spit him out. Was because we were watching him bungle this crisis. And in one of Obama's, I should say, recent speeches, something that we talked about was him saying, you know, MAGA always makes this argument that Trump's so good because in that beginning part, the economy was good. Okay, not the pandemic, but that beginning part, the economy was good. And Obama said, well, yeah, because that's what I handed to him after spending years cleaning up what was handed to Obama, which was a disaster by his predecessor. And his predecessor was, by the way, a Republican, but that was a long build up to that economic problem. But to get to the core of why I think a big part of the Trump argument's absurd is that framework, which is, all right, let's look at the years surrounding Trump's presidency, the beginning or right before and after. Let's not do this weird thing where we say, don't look at any time before 2017 and don't look at any time after 2020 started. Omit 2020 from his record, just sort of that few years there, and then get back to judging Biden-Harris for all the pandemic-related stuff. So just sort of take some things out, put some things in, and then Trump was a good president. But I think the way that he mishandled the pandemic by itself means he should never be president again, especially given that he explicitly decided to push out of his administration an initiative that was preparing for a pandemic like the one that hit. And he put himself and his politics over people's lives in not responding effectively because he thought that if he showed urgency and was serious about it, people would be afraid and would blame him, and that would be bad for him politically. And then when you really contextualize it all, Obama's economy that Trump inherited, the continuation of economic trends under Trump, nothing crazy good happened more than what was expected because of what Trump inherited. And then he mismanages the moment he's called to lead. If that's a record you think's impressive, you got a low bar. But then that bar all of a sudden gets really, really, really high when Biden-Harris oversee this really strong recovery. Then Obama said this.
Point number 2. When it comes to health care, Donald Trump has got one answer. He wants to end the Affordable Care Act. He doesn't even really know what the Affordable Care Act is or how it works. He just knows I did it. No, that's the truth.
Yeah, which is why he wanted to repeal it, because Obama did it. But at the same time, he now tries to convince us that he saved it. And the question has to be asked, is he really arguing, as I guess J.D. Vance did on the debate stage, that Trump should get credit for saving Obamacare from himself because he failed to follow through on his campaign promise to eliminate it and replace it with something much better? That's a pretty crazy way to operate. You know, I tried to punch you and I missed, so I saved you from my punch. I saved your face. Here is Obama making the point that while Trump makes a big part of his campaign message, that Vice President Harris has been vice president, so why is she making any promises in the future? She should have done it already. He was also president already, so why didn't he fix all the problems that now he's complaining about?
Now, I got some more points. If you challenge Donald Trump or his BP nominee, Vance, if you challenge them on Well, these concepts don't seem to make much sense, and nobody really understands them, and the economists tell you they're not going to work. If you challenge them, they'll fall back on one answer. It does not matter what it is: housing, healthcare, education, paying for the bills. One answer: blame the immigrants. Don't boo. What did I tell you? He wants you to believe that if you elect him, he will just round up whoever he wants and ship them out, and all your problems will be solved. Now, let me tell you something, because I've been working on this for a long time. We have a real issue at the border. We are a nation of laws and a nation of immigrants. We have to make sure the system works the way it's supposed to, so that we've got legal immigration, which built our nation, where we've got folks like the DACA folks that I worked on behalf of to make sure that they grew up here, that we give them pathways to citizenship. But we also have to have an orderly border. We have to have it fair. There's nothing, that's the truth. We have to fix some aspects of it that are broken. Sí se puede. But when I hear Donald Trump talk, I keep on, he's very quick to say to Kamala, well, you were vice president 4 years. Dude, you were president for 4 years. As I recall, you were up there in the Oval Office. So if rounding up and deporting millions of desperate people, many of them who are women and children, if that's the answer to everything, well, why is it that the number of undocumented immigrants were basically the same when he left office as when he took office? He didn't solve the problem, and I'll tell you why: because he does not have a real plan.
And it serves him for the quote-unquote problem to remain, because that's his whole thing. He can fearmonger about it. It's the same reason the border security bill was shot down by Republicans. And it's all there, just so, like I said at the beginning, brilliant, of course, the way that he's communicating, but also the points that he's making in that communication. What MAGA would say, which Obama already sort of refuted, is, well, no, things were all solved, even though when Trump left office, we had a public health crisis, a crime crisis, an economic crisis, a democratic crisis. But they say everything was perfect. He solved all the problems. And it was Biden-Harris who undid all of his stuff and broke it again. But if the sole metric we're using, which is the one they say is the big one, is border encounters, illegal border crossing attempts, then if Trump's policies really solved everything, why was the trend of a spike in undocumented immigration already starting as Trump was about to leave office? At the end of his term, we saw this big spike because it had gone down a lot during the pandemic. All right, understandable. And then an unprecedented spike there. And then definitely that unprecedented spike continued into Biden-Harris. Clearly, solely prioritizing inhumane policies, while we should oppose because of their inhumanity, also, by their metrics, don't solve the problem. It's goofy for people to use 2020 as the year they celebrate Trump's policies on the border for, because, movement froze because of the pandemic, so there weren't as many, numbers in terms of migration. So let's go a year back. Does that work with you? Since he had years as president to do all the things you said were going to solve the problem. 2019, more border crossings than any time under Obama. So Trump ran on what Obama's doing is terrible, let me come fix it. And he clearly didn't. So by your standard, you should be throwing out those quote unquote solutions as well. Because just being inhumane, it doesn't do the trick if that's something you're okay doing, which we're not. So maybe we do both security-based, yes, secure the border, and humanity-based policies, and We welcome lawful immigration. We facilitate that, make it more efficient, and do so in a bipartisan manner. But every time, whether it be at the beginning of Biden's administration, one of the first things they did was propose immigration reform, or the border security bill more recently, Republicans never want to engage in those discussions because the problem is the point. The problem is what helps them politically. Nice stuff there from former President Barack Obama. Trump's going to be very upset. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Get the bonus show by clicking the join button below.